Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. Yes, we've got ourselves a very interesting day, to say the least. What are we talking about today? They are buying. Yes. Who's buying? Well, look, we're going to dive into that very, very shortly. And a couple of on-chain analytics are suggesting that some heavyweights holding a lot of Bitcoin have been on what would be called a buying spree. So we're going to be diving into that very shortly. We're also going to have a look at what's going on around the world, what's impacting the markets, what have we got going into today. And quite frankly, we don't have anything today. There's nothing to be worried about in the sense of news announcements from the US or Powell or any of the gang at the Federal Reserve. But we're going to be going into a few articles that could be setting the tone for what we could expect today. And a big one is Apple are actually going to start revealing this new chip in the iPad. So that's going to be very interesting, which is probably why we're seeing a lot of flavor to the upside with the S&P and the NASDAQ. Granted, the S&P and NASDAQ do not even look like they can even come down. They are just picking up and just going to the upside, all because there is the potential for a Fed cut very, very soon. We're going to be diving into that very shortly. When we've got all of that done, ladies and gentlemen, that should take us towards the open itself. And if you are new, welcome to Traders Reality. My name is Tino. Let's have a conversation, gang. Let's get with the program. Here we go. So let me just move this bad boy over here. I'm not late, man. Chill out. It's all good. The markets ain't even fully open yet. Chill. It's fashionably late. What's going on here? Oops. Yeah. Sorry about that. Anyways, let's get with the program. Here we go. So what we got here, S&P. Look at this thing, man. It just coming down to the daily open, testing that. No interest. Recovery of the vector. Yippee-ki-yay to the upside is what we're looking for with the S&P. And we're going to get into a little bit of Bitcoin price action very, very shortly. But we need to just start diving into the story. What am I talking about in regards to they are buying? Well, look, this is a nice article from Willy Woo. Old school boy. He says that there's never been such a buying spree by high net worth Bitcoin holders that's happened in the last 2 months, with Bitcoin ranging between 60 and 70K. Like I said to you before, I'm looking for the 60K zone to be the new 20K region itself. Any breaches beyond that would be, it would be quite a problem for us. But again, is Bitcoin going to be behaving in relation to the stock market? Granted, Bitcoin hasn't really moved up the same way the stock market has. But that's only because everyone's all pumped on the idea that the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting interest rates. So why would we need to even go over to Bitcoin if we're seeing a little bit of faith in the fiat policies? See what I mean? It's like, okay, things are looking good now for fiat. We're going to be seeing them effectively cut the rates. So that means it's not going to cost as much money to do business. That's why the S&P and the NASDAQ effectively are moving up, because investors are pricing this stuff all in. Now, just look at this. It's this orange line here. It's shifting up, suggesting that there's activity. Now, what do we understand about activity? Well, we've got the bids here. Okay, this is the bid and the offer chart for Bitcoin. You can see that we've already had quite a significant amount of offers coming into play with Bitcoin, suggesting that people are in the mood to sell. But we're starting to see it lighten up a little bit inside of this area here. And there is interest down here. We got 19 million bids at the 63,000 zone. That's really important for Bitcoin. For people that are going to be buying Bitcoin, they want to see the support. The problem is retail looks at buying in the sense when Bitcoin's price is rising up. That's not what you got to look at. You got to look at the way Bitcoin drops. That's when you're going to understand if someone's there to step in and buy it. So it's really important that we pay attention to this chart right here. Now, before we get into any price action with Bitcoin, just a little bit of a snapshot of what's going on across the world. Rafah assault. Now, this is talking about the politics of it all, but it's actively happening as we speak. We've got this assault happening. And to make matters even worse, look at this. Just look at this. Ukraine are pitching to new soldiers. Choose your own adventure, bruv. This ain't Call of Duty, man. The people that they're trying to scout, like the fanatics of Call of Duty, are going to think, you know what, I can actually do it in real time. Yeah, baby. I'll get my own Semtex. Yeah, man. I'll get my own AK. Yeah, baby. Look how they're selling it, man. I looked at this and I thought, is that Call of Duty? Then I started reading into what's going on. I'm like, oh my days. Look at that. That's how bad it's getting, man. That is wild. Making it look like a movie, as good old Austin Powers would say. But this is sad, man. This is rough. It's playing on young people to get involved in it. Look, you can ride a tank, you can be a sniper, you can covert, you can be the top dog right here. Look at this. Like, it just doesn't make sense what's going on, but you can tell that they're getting quite desperate. Even worse with that, there was an article suggesting that there is a ploy to assassinate Zelensky, and it's been, how did they put it? They've actually managed to get away from it in principle. They're trying to assassinate the guy. So it's not even about taking claim to land anymore. It's about just assassinating the presidents. Any chance of assassinating Putin? Nah, ain't happening. In other news in principle, which is affecting everything, this story here about employment costs. This is important. U.S. employment costs have risen by the most, okay? And they think that this is it, where it's going to stop. But Powell is not interested in cost of employment. He's interested in prices. But in the article, he goes on to say that, here we go. Powell has repeatedly stressed that Fed targets prices, not wages, as it seeks to rein in inflation without triggering a recession. Nevertheless, he did suggest last week that pay gains may need to cool further for the central bank to achieve its 2% inflation target. So what is it, Powell? Is the employment cost important or not? Because if we have continuous employment costs going up, companies are naturally going to be getting rid of people. That's going to create unemployment, and that's going to, of course, have an impact on inflation. But you can understand why Powell is going to be focusing on prices, because if they're increasing the costs of goods and services, you can get rid of as many people as you want. These companies that are increasing the cost of goods and services need to do so that they can meet up to the demand of the cost of business. And already, money itself is getting tighter and tighter at the rate of 5.5%. And this is why the markets are going up, because they think maybe we're going to get an interest rate cut this side of this year. And the more, look, I ain't even going to mention it. Next week, just stick with me here. I've said this morning to everyone, okay? Can we justify the big movement up in the S&P and the NASDAQ? Because look, S&P and NASDAQ, they're trailing towards their all-time highs, ladies and gentlemen. We are not far away from the all-time high flavor. You understand that? And we're going into the reading of CPI next week. What if we get a surprise reading? Now, they haven't forecasted anything just yet, so we'll get that data soon. But as we do get this information, I'll let you guys know on what they could be forecasting for the CPI, because that's going to be very important for us. And what if everything's coming up to only come down? Smart money, dumb money, you know what it is. Check this out. Apple expected to show new iPads in a possible new chip. Now, listen. The last time Apple held a conference when they introduced the virtual reality thing, everyone was like, yeah, man, it's happy days. And then they said how much it was going to cost. Apple's stock slumped. They were like, I ain't going to be paying for that. No, thank you. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're doing it, because this has been a long time since they did the iPads. And check this out. They do these iPad meets, and they introduce new tech in May because it's when people are starting to get ready. Here we go. It says, Apple often introduces new iPads in May, a time when education customers are making purchasing decisions for the next academic year. So Apple's there like, here you go, Mr. Schools and all your schools out there. Do you want this iPad? Yep, place your orders now. We'll have 2,000, 5,000, 6,000. You see, they're not even interested in the retailers. They're interested in the schools that are going to be selling all of this stuff to the retailers to only get them to buy it again. Can you imagine? Think about it. You get a school that now has iPads. All these kids are using these iPads. Mommy, daddy, can you buy me an iPad? They've just sold to the school and they're selling to the students at the same time. Fantastic business model, in my opinion. But anyway, that is why Apple is what Apple is. In great news for crypto, Revolut is actually doing a standalone crypto trading platform for UK retail customers. Now, I've got this app myself, and I'm not seeing it just yet. And if it's going to be anything that I think it's going to be, it's just going to be exactly the same thing like that you've got with Robinhood. 0 commissions, and you just end up paying you pay a spread on the app. But if it's leverage trading, that's a different story. And you can appreciate that it's not leverage trading because for some reason you can't do it at all in the UK. I can't trade Binance, can't trade Bybit. They're not allowing leverage customers or people to use leverage in the UK. So with that being said, here we go. It says here, Revolut X traders can trade more than 100 tokens with a fixed percent maker. And 0.9% taker fee, regardless of the trading volume. The platform will initially launch with the same assets already available on the Revolut app, which is, of course, XRP. They do have quite a wide range of assets, but it seems like they could be doing some leverage, but it would be a very small amount. And I'm waiting to see if they are offering it to me because I have been using that quite significantly as of late. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, so with all of this information, going back to the idea of the Bitcoin buying, well, we need to understand something. Is the buying actually happening? That's what we need to understand. And again, the Glassnode is suggesting that investors are actually loading up and they're in belief that Bitcoin is going to continue higher. We go into the Bitcoin price action itself, and you can see that Bitcoin still within this psychological range for the week. And this is an important range for us all during these times, because this tells you where the highest point of the week, start of the week, and the lowest point of the week at the open of the start of a new crypto trading week. And it's really important for us because it tells us if market maker is in essence looking at offloading and getting ready to mark prices lower, or is he getting ready to mark prices higher? We've effectively got these 2 points of interest in the chart with Bitcoin, and it's really a case of whether they're going to do one first or the other. That's the thing. And the thing that gets me is you've also got the S&P and the NASDAQ moving up, and then you've got this ETF story. We're not really seeing much happening across the board. Like, look at this. 4 hours ago, Invesco stepped in, sold 100 Bitcoin. Cumberland again has been buying Bitcoin. Coinbase Prime Wallet 18 hours ago picked up some Bitcoin as well. So, and I know you've seen a lot of exchange inflows have been really, really low, which is consistent with money getting ready to effectively, people are holding their Bitcoin, okay? And again, you've got to look at things like this. This is the Coinbase Premium Index. What are they doing with the dollars? Because if we don't pay attention to what they're doing with the dollars, then what's the point? They have to sell dollars to buy Bitcoin. All right. And then they sell Bitcoin to get the dollars back. That's the story that we've got right now. But as you can see, Coinbase Premium, it says it's coming back down. It's going down. So might not really be seeing that many US investors picking up crypto, for the better word. Okay. Now, going into Bitcoin price action on the daily time frame, and then we're going to look at the Bookmap and have a look at where we are in terms of offers and bids. Okay. So we've got this wave-like behavior for my holders. You've got drop, retrace, drop, retrace, drop, retrace, drop. I mean, you'd only associate the idea of that, but you've got to understand at any minute it can change. One candle is all it takes to change. Bitcoin can shoot up from this point and it can come and clear the liquidity up here. Happy days. But we are in an accumulation zone. How deep is the accumulation? It's a different story. All right. And that's what we've got to really take into consideration. If we actually go into the Bookmap, let me just pull up the Bookmap for a second to understand where we are for the day in terms of the range. So you've got here, the Bookmap is showing we've got offers coming in at minus 12%. Not really aggressive behavior. We're at the VWAP right now. And if we zoom out a little bit more, that should really help me. Here we are. So this is where we are right now with Bitcoin in the bids and the offers. You can see that we've got a few guys up here that are wanting to sell the Bitcoin. So we know that there is interest to sell Bitcoin. But down here, you've got bids that are progressively stepping in, stepping out, stepping in, stepping out. And you've always got to say to yourself, where in the chart can I naturally expect there to be a volatile reaction? And that is when you look at that range and you do the opposite of what it suggests. So let me explain it to you. You've got this area here. When Bitcoin is dropping, you buy. When you see Bitcoin, for example, when you see Bitcoin dropping from this area here and it has failed to actually clear this range, you can only assume that the next candlestick is going to do just that. So then you're waiting, all right? whenever you're buying Bitcoin as a DCA principle, you see this area here? That's appearing at the highest point. It's not really breaking down. So you'd have to be a little bit cautious going long from and building a position from here. But it's when you start seeing Bitcoin actually working its way down where you start to pay attention like this. Because if you were able to capture this drop down here, you'd be going long inside of this range. The failure of the red vector candle closing at the lowest point is pretty much the idea that they're getting ready to try and make a reversal, which is what they've done. And remember what we've said. Go back into the yields themselves. Look at the 2-year. What's the 2-year yield doing right now? This is the daily time frame on the 2-year. That's saying that it's trading negative. So it looks like things are promising. Risk is on. We go over to the volatility index and you can see that the VIX is actually pointing lower. And that's good news. As long as the VIX is going down, then assets in principle will be marking up. But just remember, when the volatility index is going down, it means calls are being picked up. So people are buying calls in the options markets, okay? Now, the volatility index here is the put-call ratio on the S&P. So what does it tell us? It tells us that there are a lot of people buying in the S&P right now. And if the volatility is going to sustain itself to the upside with the S&P, we're going to see more calls. But you've got to remember something. All the way up here, in principle, are there stops or where they would be out of the money, okay? So usually when we have a certain put-call ratio reading, I believe it's 0.6 or 0.8, you've got to be very careful when there is that many people going in on calls because the market naturally just likes to reverse back up and hit those positions and put them in out of the money plays, okay? So just be very cautious with that. We've got red, green vector candle regions down here. So I'd expect them to continue with the narrative lower. And remember, the volatility index is a psychological chart, in my opinion. It tells us the relationship on who's going short, who's going long, who's buying puts, who's buying calls. And this chart gives you that idea. So the idea is that if this is going down, then logically we assume assets to go up. But if they're going to be buying Bitcoin, they ain't going to be buying Bitcoin as it's rising. They're going to be buying it as it's dropping. Okay, so just take that into consideration. Going into the NASDAQ and the S&P for a split second to understand the relationship with that. NASDAQ and S&P have been doing significantly well. They've held very well in the Asian session itself. They've got the daily high right there. I mean, look, you've got to understand with Bitcoin, okay, if we even add this to the chart, just to put it into perspective, new price scale, S&P is marking up, and this is Bitcoin's price as well. So you can say safely that Bitcoin does follow the stock market. You can't deny that it doesn't, all right? Now, look, volatility up here comes down, S&P is down, and then volatility brings it back up. So it really does serve you to pay close attention to how the S&P is behaving, what's going on in the bigger picture of the marketplace. So even if we were to just go into the markets, have a look at what they're saying over here. Stocks gain on bank earnings, rate cut optimism. Okay, cool. So looking at this, S&P futures, little changed. Disney shares drop on revenue miss, no problem. But again, this is where we are right now. They're pointed for a pause for Wall Street's rally, fueled by optimism that the Federal Reserve will start cutting interest rates this year. That's great news for us. We go into the charts over here. We can see 368 stocks are up on volume and 91 of them are down on volume. That's good. And of course, exposure has increased between 40 and 60. Last week, it was 20 to 40. Now exposure's coming back into the stock market, which is good news. Okay. Now we go to relaunch the charts right here and we'll look at what time we're on. My head is fried. We have a look at this over here and have a look at where the NASDAQ and the S&P is in relation to volume for the week so far. And you can see that they are rising, but it's not there. Look, you see these bars here? These bars need to be finishing above the red line. It's the 50-day average of volume. And if we're not seeing them actually pushing price or pushing volume above this red line, then it means that there's not really any big activity happening in the marketplace. So it's like a little bit of a drift to the upside, okay? But I'm going to be telling you guys straight up right now, this thing right here, Nvidia, whose earnings are due in 15 days' time, it's already behaving like as if it's going to smash it on its earnings. With that being said, we're going to talk about something very important. Amazon. Now, for anyone that's investing in stock, this is how you've got to really look at it. Microsoft and Google have been smashing it with cloud services, whether it's online or offline, okay? Now, cloud is, when I say offline, it means infrastructure to provide the cloud service, okay? Now, Amazon's looking to get involved in that as well, all right? And when Amazon starts sniffing about in that range, then you know Amazon's going to end up being the dominator right there. So now Amazon's starting to invest in a Singapore cloud infrastructure. So that's good news. So anyone that's involved in Amazon or holding stock of Amazon, this is naturally going to help the stock price increase in value because they're putting things together. They're preparing for a service that they can sell where they can generate revenue, which is naturally going to improve their share price and make a lot of investors a little bit happy. Let's just have a look at Amazon's share price itself. Come on. Come on, where you at, Amazon? Where are you? Oh, man, you take absolutely forever. Anyway, we'll just go over here and have a look at it from here. I prefer it on that chart anyways. Where are we at? Amazon. There we go. So you can see already, look, doing relatively well, leading in with the stock market. And this is important. If you want to know if the stock market's going up or not, have a look at the big market caps. The big market caps are effectively going to lead you into believing that the markets are going to continue higher. Okay, so this is the S&P. This is Amazon. You go over and have a look at Nvidia. Going up, happy days. Have a look at Tesla. We got a little bit of a problem with Tesla because I don't know if you guys knew about it, but China's trying to get into bed with the European zone with electric cars and trade and what have you, but it's starting to come to a few problems. I think the US is going to step in and be like, hold on, Euro. We've already got it in for you with your currency being a pain in our backside. I don't want you to get into bed with China, but hey, that's another story. Microsoft, again, marking up. S&P marking up. We've got big imbalances up here on the Microsoft, so we could only associate the idea that they're getting ready to continue higher. Meta, look, big gap that needs to be cleared. S&P moving up. Meta's likely going to be moving up. Netflix moving up. Intel, not really doing too much. And we've got Macom Technology, look, we're not really doing too well, but you really just want to focus on the big heavyweights because they're the ones that are going to lead the market. They're the ones that are going to help us understand if Bitcoin can go up or not. You see, we can prove that Bitcoin follows the stock market. There's no two ways about it, ladies and gentlemen. So that can be another confluence. You can take your on-chain analytics, no problem. But the real way of viewing the chart is to look at what the bigger aspect of money is doing. When you're following big money, then you're improving the odds of at least being on the right side of the trade. Now, S&P and NASDAQ shot up yesterday. Bitcoin did nothing, but this is consistent with them potentially buying, and we could be in for another little sweep. There could be another issue down here with the bids, but we won't know until the market actually fully opens very shortly, and we can exploit that, okay? Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions? My head is fried. Smash the like. Tino, why is TRB not stopping? I don't understand. Yeah, this TRB stock, it's getting... This is following the S&P, and it's outperforming everything. Look at it. It's absolutely phenomenal. We go into the higher time frames. You can see it's going back up, but it's doing bloody well to come back up into these ranges. Well, you know what? To be fair, I won't say it's not stopping. It's just moved up. 1, 2, 3 green vector candle pushes up. No problem. I mean, if it does come back up towards this wick up here, 148, then yeah, man, that thing isn't stopping at all. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. Happy days. All right, then. Cool. Yeah, we could say it is manipulated all day. I believe it's manipulated. But if it's manipulated, just please take some money off the table, man. Don't leave any money on the table. Adrian Dimitriou. How you doing, bruv? Doesn't it mean they are seeking safety by buying up the bonds? So theoretically, once we see bonds move down, then risk would be on. Fundamentally, when the bonds go down, right? So I'm just keeping an eye on things. Focus on the yields. If the yields go down, fundamentally, you're expecting the stock market to go up because it suggests that people are going into the bonds. Go to the 10-year bonds. You can see they're starting to work up. But remember, as I said, stock market up, bonds are up. That's looking like risk across the board is being spread evenly. So that's a good sign. It's when you get the disparity of one happening against the other, which means if the bonds are up but the stock market is down, investors are not looking at risk. They want to keep themselves protected and only get involved in low risk investments. Okay. And that's where commodities tend to start moving up as well. Look, S&P's moving up, oil's moving down. It's down 0.34%. All right. So that really does really play a role in all of this. Okay. But when the bonds are moving up, you naturally assume that, yes, things are going to move higher. But just, again, be careful, because some days it's not like that. Some days S&P and NASDAQ is up, bonds are down. You may think the bonds are down. You should start shorting the NASDAQ and S&P. You end up getting in a position that's going so badly against you, okay? So always, in my opinion, pay attention to the VIX, the volatility index, even though it's not really holding out as well as it used to. And focus on the bonds, the 2-year yields, the 10-year yields, because if these are going down, it means that investors are putting money to work. And then you've got to try and work out if they're going to be going into the bonds or if they're going to the S&P and the NASDAQ itself, okay? See, just like this, let me show you something. What I look at, ladies and gentlemen, is I look at these things here. This is the S&P. This is the Dow. And then this is the NASDAQ, all right? When I'm watching this, this tells me where I am in the marketplace. I'm already at the highs of the profile of the day for the S&P and the NASDAQ. Got Russell there as well. So it seems like everything is progressively working higher, okay? And when I pay attention to all of this, I also have the 10-year T-note futures, and I look at those as well. And if I can see bids and offers coming in, and I'll give you an example right now, okay, just to put it into perspective. Let's get the 10-year notes, Z, and then that would put things into perspective. Now, watch this, okay? This is important for anyone that's day trading, all right? You joker. All right, so you see this here. This is the bonds, right? Look at the S&P. 59 contracts, 21. The NASDAQ with 3 and 4 contracts. The Russell itself, 12 and 10. And here are the bonds. 2,450, 2,500 on the bid. 2,006, 3,000 on the bid. See that? Pushing up. Offers are being eaten alive right now, okay? And there you go. That's just telling me things are going up. Bonds are moving up. There's big bids on the offers on the bonds right there. Things are being protected. They're loading up. Point of control is 48,266, and the markets are effectively open in the next couple of seconds. So you can already see that that's where the money's at. And if this is trading positive, the idea is that everything else is going to be trading positive as well. So just remember, keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, when you're using, okay, we got some absolute madness right now. Absolute madness. This is what happens when the market opens. But then when you pull up a chart, it's not as bad. let me just pull up a chart for a split second, because that's what I mean, man. You got to be crazy to do this. You have to be crazy. This is what it looks like. That's the S&P right now. Look, doesn't look too bad, does it? It's not that bad. We can deal with that. That's okay. It's a little candle. But when you're watching on the depth of market, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's so fast. Okay. Bitcoin. Okay. Going into it. All right, then. Well, ladies and gentlemen, other than that, I think I've given you enough today to get you guys started off throughout the day. Just remember, be careful when you are trading. Don't use too much leverage. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And I will be checking in with you beautiful people later on this evening. Platinum members, I got some flavor for you. So get ready for a post. I'll be checking in with you all later on. Take care of yourselves, gang. Peace.